Attention all you rule breakers, you misfits and troublemakers, all you free spirits and pioneers, all you visionaries and nonconformists. Everything the establishment has told you is wrong with you is actually what's right with you. You see things others don't. You are hardwired to change the world.
You are listening to the Spiritual Activist Radio Show, and I am Rahasia Uncensored, where we look at the world not as it is, but as we know it can be, if and only if we have the courage to question the answers we've been given. This is our world, and it's time for us to take it back. Well, welcome to the Spiritual Activist channel on BBS Radio, which is bbsradio.com/spiritual activist. I'm also on Rumble, which is rumble.com/user/Rahasia Uncensored. And I'm starting to post again on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Lotus Guide. The reason I stopped posting there is obvious. They're sort of against certain things being told, like the truth. But they're opening up now. As an example, I'm going to show you a compilation of news releases on the media, in air quotes, and you can sort of see that there is a narrative that is being programmed into them by the Associated Press, Reuters, different powers that be. I remember when I used to watch, I was watching Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. He used to do this, compile a bunch of things, just to show you that the narrative is controlled. They use the same phrase, the same ideology, same everything, just sort of overlay it with a slightly different flavor. And this has to do with children, and I better say the V word, which actually isn't even a V. It's a J word. For jab. I mean, it's so obvious, even the CDC, and I still have to self-censor a little bit, and I hate that, because we need to start talking about this stuff. I mean, seriously talking about it. I mean, the CDC says the chances of a child getting COVID is 0.00, I think it's 5%, which is like astronomically small, but all the studies show it's 0.000002%, which means your child is more than likely to get hit by lightning on the soccer field than to catch COVID and die. You know, so I want you to listen to this, because it's funny. Like most things today are funny until you think about it. Then when you think about it, it's not all that funny.
Tonight, growing fears for COVID's youngest victims.
We're talking about how horrible, how much of a risk it is to children.
This virus is capable of killing children. It has already killed hundreds of children.
It's getting our kids.
The more cases you have, the more deaths among children.
Tragic deaths.
Coming for our children.
Kids are getting infected. Kids are getting infected. They're still getting infected.
Literally hundreds of children were infected. Kids are in danger. Help me!
They are vehicles of spread.
Children spread the virus.
It may be that children who get infected have long-term consequences.
Parents of children of all ages should assume that even the smallest symptom could be COVID.
Young children are being affected.
This virus takes its toll on our children.
This is killing children.
Children have died.
Children have died. Children could die every day.
It's killing children.
Killing children. COVID-19 is disproportionately killing children of color. Children die of COVID.
This is killing kids right now.
It's taken children's lives.
Really hitting at children.
Death, morbidity.
It is picking off young people like we've never seen.
Deaths from COVID are incredibly rare among children. A death rate of 0.0000000.
It doesn't matter how low the risk.
Risk to children.
The danger for children and the need for them to be vaccinated.
Get away from me!
So obviously we have to close down the whole planet, to save a couple hundred kids. from catching COVID and dying. This is so, I told a friend of mine, I feel like I'm waking up in the movie Idiocracy. And it's not that I've all of a sudden become smarter, wiser, more intelligent. It's just that almost everybody around me is becoming so idiotic, so moronic, and so childish. I can't even respond to people. The other day I was walking down, well, let's finish this.
The only chance these children have is masking and a vaccine.
Millions of parents across the United States desperate to get their children under 12 vaccinated.
Unvaccinated kids are at risk.
Children are at high risk.
The unvaccinated are putting kids at risk.
The unvaccinated are a risk to young children. I need to be now careful for my children because of all the unvaccinated people around us.
If you are not vaccinated, do not go around children.
Fails until things are under control.
Don't come out and infect my grandkid.
You lied about your vaccine status and you sneeze on my grandchildren? That could be a crime.
I'm more worried for children than I've ever been.
Growing crisis for children. The number of kids infected with coronavirus is reaching alarming levels.
Alarming numbers.
The alarming surge in the number of children infected with COVID.
It's crucial for students 12 and up to get vaccinated.
We need these vaccines pretty urgently.
It really is a very urgent situation.
We need to raise the level of urgency.
With a sense of urgency.
Since we've been vaccinated, how dangerous is it to be near our grandchildren?
Parents grow increasingly concerned.
Deeply concerning.
Leaving many parents concerned.
Parents concerned.
They're still concerned.
The reports are deeply concerning.
Kids are starting college in 3 weeks and they're not going to be alive.
So I feel like I'm sending my son into a situation where it will be hard to protect himself.
Students who did not get vaccinated were disenrolled.
Asymptomatic students who test positive are ordered to a room where they spend 10 days in confinement. Food is dropped off once a day at the door. Doesn't that sound extreme to you?
Our updated guidance actually says you can leave isolation after 5 days if you can wear your mask all the time, including being able to eat meals alone so that you are not infecting others while you eat.
From your data, ages 15 to 24, the risk of death is at 0.001%.
Yeah, here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you that children need to be protected. That's why we all need to get vaccinated, to protect them.
If we really care about protecting our children, then vaccinate.
Protect the kids. Do it for the child.
The way to protect them is for all the rest of us to get our vaccines.
Think of their children.
And these are children.
If we want to protect kids, the number one thing to do is to vaccinate everybody around them.
So if you want to protect your grandchildren, vaccination again is the answer.
And so what my responsibility is to provide guidance and recommendations to protect the American people. Those recommendations strongly recommend vaccination for our children above the age of 5.
Okay, now what can I say about this? You see, I have a grandson. He's sort of bought into all this stuff, and him and I have a definite impasse when it comes to communication. And I've given up trying to communicate with him because it just doesn't do any good. He can't hear, he can't see. He doesn't even look at what I send him. But even when he does, it goes like right over his head. Oh my God. You know, it's so frustrating right now. I started to say earlier, yesterday, I met this guy and I was telling him about the Chinese balloon, which is they say it's a satellite system or a spy system, or they don't know what it is, but I can tell you what it is. It's a trial test to send a small nuclear bomb down close enough to our atmosphere, because people say, well, they could do that from satellites. No, it's too high. If they would put 10 or 20 of these balloons over with a small nuclear detonation, it would wipe out our technology, except for a few old cars, you know. Anyway, I was telling this guy about it, and I said, yeah, as soon as they seen that thing, they should have shot it down. He says, well, they can't shoot it down over cities. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Obviously, he's an idiot, because the obvious response to that, like you would talk to a 5-year-old child, is, well, don't shoot it down over cities. That would seem like it's clear to me that we just don't do that. They're coming over Montana, Billings, Montana. There is nothing for hundreds of square miles. The Rocky Mountains, the Great Plains, deserts. There is so much that could have been areas where they could have shot this down. Instead, they wait till it goes all the way across the United States, shoot it down over the Atlantic Ocean. But now it's done what it's supposed to do. Now, Xi Jinping knows exactly what he can get away with. And he's probably the one that gave the orders to Biden to, okay, you can shoot it down now. I mean, look at everything that's going on. If you don't get what's happening right now, that we are being sold out, compromised, and taken over by the long game that the Chinese Communist Party is playing, well, you're an idiot or a moron. I'm sorry. My daughter, my wife doesn't like me to use these terms because it sort of polarizes people. But mentally challenged, does that feel better to you? Low IQ, minimal frontal lobe cortex action, a lack of neurons. I mean, how childish do we have to get before we just say it like it is? There are people that are going deep, deep, deep into their dreams and into the matrix. That's why they don't want you to look up. If you look up, you start seeing the chemtrails, the poison toxins that they're spraying on us, the Chinese spy balloons that they're flying over us. Don't you get it? I mean, if you don't get it by now, you're probably not watching my show, for one. You've probably turned it off right away. Most of my show is about leading you to other shows that can give you more in depth, because there are a lot of people out there waking up. And maybe that's the one good thing about my show is I go out there and I look at so much. I even watch CNN and MSNBC and all the other ridiculous shows, and almost everything they say I can refute with facts. I hate to use the word science anymore. That's been sort of taken over. But I'm just talking about hard, cold research facts, statistics, graphs that have been done by third-party people that aren't involved in any of the polarities or the craziness or the idiocracy of what's going on. But I think we need to take a look at some of the things that are happening. So let's take a look at this. This is Man in America. Man in America, you can get him on probably maninamerica.com, but you can get him on band.video. Like I say, this is Man in America. He's talking to Naomi Wolf. She doesn't say much in this short little clip, but she has a lot to say. And I remember years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, she was being stopped in the airport and searched and questioned. And she said, there will come a day when I might not want to do this. I don't want to become a target. Well, too late, And now I think she's past that Rubicon, and now she has no choice but to keep on trying to wake people up. This is Man in America, and I think you'll enjoy what he has to say here.
Mentioned the CCP, and I've studied the CCP pretty extensively. It's one of my main focuses, actually, and I came to a similar conclusion that I believe that the vaccine itself was the CCP bioweapon. Everyone thought that COVID was the CCP bioweapon, but I actually think that COVID was just a psychological operation to get the world to take the vaccine. And if you look at, it's like, okay, who in America is being forced to take the vaccine? It's first responders. Okay, it's doctors, nurses, people in the hospital. It's our own military, right? It's the police, the firefighters. So if you were the CCP and you wanted to collapse one of your greatest adversary, this is the perfect thing. And if you trace back there, I'm not sure if you've read the leaked speech from General Chi Hao-chen, who was the defense minister in China in early 2000. in this leaked speech, which the Epoch Times got a hold of and they published it, he literally talked about how they would have to use a bioweapon to take out between 1 and 200 million Americans in the future because they needed to colonize America, but they couldn't, because they needed our farmland, they couldn't use nuclear or heavy weaponry that would damage the ability to grow food here. And so they specifically talked about developing a genetically, targeting, race specific bioweapon so that they could kill between 1 and 200 million Americans. And now you look at what's happening. You look at Joe Biden's ties to the CCP, a lot of the other politicians' ties to the CCP, and the CCP's influence over the CDC, the WHO, the UN, and it's all coming together.
Yep, it's all coming together, and we're not paying attention, folks. And I'm just going to keep on going here. There's so much to talk about. When I get ready to do a show, it's not like I have to say, oh, what can I do a show about? There's so much. I almost have to say, okay, what don't I want to do a show about? But we're going to watch a few things here. So I think you're going to enjoy today's show. And once again, if you want to email me, it's rahasia@usa.com. If you want to make a donation, because you notice I don't have any advertisers. I don't think George Soros would probably back me. I wouldn't take it anyway. But if you want to make a donation, it's lotusguide, lotusguide.com/donation. And like I say, if you're watching me on YouTube or Rumble or BBS Radio, be sure to like and forward and help me out there, because I'm really difficult at promoting myself. I tend to promote other people more than myself, which is okay because we're all in this together. But I could use your help whenever you feel inclined to do so. Now, before I start doing some of the segments that I want to do, I want to show you something. Alex Jones, and I know he's a bad word in some households, but wake up. Alex Jones has been right 95% of the time plus. He has the largest audience by far than many of the networks combined. People are waking up. He has millions and millions and millions of people that watch his live feed, and that doesn't count all the people that watch it later in the archived and forward it and shares it. And this is why I'm going to show you band.video, and he's starting a new channel too, alexjoneslive.com. But band.video has some amazing people. Del Bigtree with the high wire. Let me show you. It's the easiest thing to do. This is band.video website. Let me scale it down just a little bit so you can see it better. This is, let me show you over here. These are some of the people that he has. The War Room with Owen Schroyer. Alex was right. Greg Reese, he has some really great 4 or 5 minute clips. And Paul Joseph Watson, I like him pretty good. Christy Lay, man, she's pretty good too. Let me see here. Bill Gates is Evil. I haven't even watched that one. Project Veritas, we'll watch some of their stuff today. Southern Border Crisis, COVID Land, the Roger Stone Zone. They've crucified this guy. Let me see here. Badass Uncle Sam. This guy is an old guy. He goes around town and talks to people, gets in their face. Red Pilled TV. Dr. McCullough, well-respected doctor, talks about all this stuff, the vaccinations especially. Reawaken America. That's a tour that is going across America. And they have some amazing speakers on their tour too, by the way. Nick Fuentes. What else we got here? Let me see. All these things are pretty amazing. These are all people that's on band.video, InfoWars, archives. Oh my God. It goes on. Save America March, Conspiracy Castle. They take too many leaps sometimes. They end up being true, but it's a bit too much for some people. Flyover conservatives. If you're a Christian, this is a really good Christian perception of what's going on. They do the America tour. It doesn't matter how big the venue is, they fill it up. Every city, they fill it up. So you can't tell me people aren't waking up to the craziness. The amazing Polly, she's really good at doing research. Super good. Del Bigtree, the High Wire, works a lot with Robert Kennedy Jr. on the vaccinations. I haven't watched Mark Passio. What on Earth is Happening? That's also a website of his. The Soul Trap, it's a little weird for me, although weird seems to be happening more and more. Microaggressions, this guy's pretty good. He's doing his best to get the word out there, has a good audience. My God, here's The Man in America. What else we got here? I think I just heard about these two women, Diamond and Silk. Diamond just recently died, but just two women that happen to be black. I guess we have to say that anymore because it shouldn't make any difference, but they're going out there, or her sister's going out there and continuing to talk with people. Violent America shows you some absolute insane peaceful protests. BLM and Antifa is communism. Very interesting channel. This is just another channel. It's not just another channel. It's pretty good. Mike Adams. Mike Adams is really good. He's the health ranger. Naturalnews.com. I hope you're taking notes, or if you're not taking notes, go back and get your pen and paper and check out some of these people. The Absolute Truth is pretty good. Riot Coverage, which is what they call peaceful protest. Pete Santilli. I like Pete Santilli. He's getting a little loud for me, but I find myself wanting to get a little loud at times because people, they're just not listening. But getting loud doesn't make it any more true. It just turns a lot of people off. Same thing with Crowder. He's so loud, but he's pretty good though. He's turned down like $50 million. They wanted him to sell out. He turned down a $50 million deal because he says, no, I'm not going to do this. So that makes Louder with Crowder worth listening to, no matter how loud he is. And we have to put away our little nonsense, he's too loud, he's blah, 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 That's some of the programs they have on here. And like, this is just today. I'm just going to read some of these off. Let me see if I can get a better grasp here on the screen of what we're looking at. This is just today. CCP mission complete, gives Biden green light to shoot down the blimp, basically. This is today's emergency broadcast. What are those? Skulls, the Nephilim, biblical prophecies. This is the flyover conservatives. And if you don't know about the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, you are way behind what's going on with the Bible and Christian movement and everything. You need to catch up because everything's changing right now. Everything. They're telling us what comes next. It's far worse than we can imagine. And oh my God, it goes on and on and on. American mind control, European Central Bank preparing for bail-ins. If you don't know about that, if you have money in the bank, you better wake up. Transhumanism and esoteric Hollywood. Alex Jones exposes the EMP death of humanity. One EMP pulse. The author of 1 Second After, he was doing an interview, and the interviewer said, how many people would die in an EMP pulse, like week or two or a month into it? He says within 5 minutes, 200,000 people would die, because the airliners that's up in the sky at that time are going to have a real difficult time navigating, because even our pilots now depend so much on AI and autopilot that a lot of them in really, really hectic kinds of situations up in the air, they don't know what to do. In an emergency, they can still land the plane, they can still take off, but there aren't too many Scullys around, put it that way. If Russia defeats NATO, the world will abandon the dollar. This is Mike Adams. He's pretty good. I mean, I have to tell you, you need to listen. All of these people are pretty good. I just watched this, a must-see, CIA conference, the existential threat of EMP. This was a sort of a round table, square table discussion from the CIA and top people in security and threat analysis in our country. And they're all saying the same thing. We're not protected. There's nobody in control. And they're sort of taking a look at this, some of them for the first time. And some of them have been doing this since the mid-70s. And they're just now getting around to going, oh, wait a minute. Talk about idiots. We might have a problem with China and an EMP pulse, or the sun, any number of things. The EMP pulse from a nuclear detonation is one kind of, that's a long wave, or no, it's a short wave, and that does the most damage to electronics. The other kind is from the sun. That's a longer wave that does some damage too, to the grid and all that. The other one is lightning. That doesn't do too much, but it does some damage, But I mean, watch that conference. They're talking, these people are getting a little concerned, a whole lot concerned, because nobody's taking care of things. They're talking about the fact that 20 people with a high-powered rifle coordinated across the United States, taking out some of these big, huge power stations just by shooting down a few of the capacitors and a few of the wirings and shooting into the building. They could completely cripple the United States. Do you think there's maybe 20 people with a rifle that would like to do that? I think. Here's Kissinger, the kiss of death guy. Here's another, Greg Reese. There's so much here. I hope you keep watching my show. This is Man in America. Something bizarre is happening to the U.S. money. Yeah, something really bizarre. And this just keeps on going. We're going to play some of this guy too. Project Veritas. This moronic idiot. He deserves both the titles. I'll just have to play it for you. You'll see. It's so bizarre. Okay, now this is a short clip of the balloon, the Chinese balloon. I think we should come up with a more ominous term than a balloon, but it's big as a football field, and some of the things on the bottom of it are bigger than 3 school buses, length to length. Here's a little bit of what some of the newscasts are saying, and it was even on CNN that it should be shot down, by the way.
Twitter on several different official. I believe it just happened there. That was it. Live, raw, and unfiltered. It appears that China spy balloon.
Here we go.
Now they could have done that several places across America, but they waited till the whole thing went across all of America doing whatever it was supposed to do. Well, okay, now we go to the... Now, I know I'm probably over-promoting Alex Jones for some of you, but the more I get to know this guy, I've been listening to him for about 12 years. That's my dog. He wants in here. He wants into my studio. He wants to tell you a few things too, but I'm going to see if he settles down. He's become my partner in life. I have 2 partners now. Now he's scratching at the door. But this is Alex Jones over the years, a short compilation of some of the things he's been doing.
If you think the awakening we've seen so far is big, this planet and the globalists have not seen anything yet. We're aware of your activities, trying to muzzle the American people and gaming your search results. Google is evil. We now take the challenge, not to censor like you do, but to stand against you and to fight even harder for our birthright that you are trying to steal. Remember this. You killed your profession by becoming nothing but mercenaries for the globalists, and people know that you're fake news, many of you. Now, with you trying to kill the First Amendment,
Take it easy,
you're
Bex.
making yourself true villains. You've declared war on the First Amendment. You've declared war on free speech. Since when are hundreds of doctors unable to have press conferences in America? Right. And they take it off YouTube, they take it off Google, they take it off Twitter, they take it off Facebook. There is a giant crackdown that even the New York Times calls it a crackdown on conservatives and a plan to deplatform conservatives from the internet and communicating with each other, just like communist China. I'm here to expose this fraud. I'm here, just like in Congress has hearings about me, I go there. And I get in their face and I expose the truth, and that's what I'm going to do. We got over 40 million subscribers on Apple. That was our biggest thing with my 3 podcasts. Those were all banned.
The most banned man in America, Alex Jones.
Notice the standing ovation this guy gets.
The next chapter in humanity's fight for liberty starts now.
Yeah, we need to start paying attention to the conspiracy theorists, because it's telling me, I tell you, I'm going to be 75 years old this year. And I have to tell you, every single conspiracy that I've heard about has ended up being true, or looking like it's true, or being shown to be beyond a shadow of a doubt true. Yeah, it starts out to be a theory because people look at things and go, that doesn't seem quite right. I wonder if it's this or that. And it's almost always one or the other. It's either this or that, or a combination of both. So I think we need to start taking down our confirmation bias a couple of notches when it comes to the messenger, and stop killing the messenger. Now here's another little thing by Greg Reese. I think you'll enjoy it. It's 2 minutes, but he nails it pretty good.
After publishing my video report on bank bail-ins, a contractor for the European Central Bank, who asked that his name be withheld for security reasons, contacted me with the following information. Shortly after the FDIC meeting that went viral, my source was assigned an urgent project related to bail-in capability for the European.
And by the way, what they're talking about in this meeting of basically the international banking people, the settlement people, they're actually laughing at us for having so much confidence in the banking system. And they out and out say it in their words. They don't have confidence in the system at all, because they know that it was built to fail. It's built to fail, and it's going to fail.
Central Bank, or ECB. Bail-ins is when the bank steals money directly from people's accounts, just like we saw in Cyprus in 2013. The project goal is to build a data infrastructure for the financial market infrastructures, which are the networks that allow financial transactions to take place, to report to the ECB about the capability of banks and capital markets to absorb losses and to execute bail-ins as quickly and efficiently as possible. This urgent project makes it clear that the ECB is expecting a system collapse, and that they know it is uncontrollable and unforeseeable. The current security requirements do not legally compel the banks to provide information to the ECB. If a bank is insolvent, they have no incentive to tell the ECB. And so the ECB is not targeting banks directly, but rather financial intermediaries like SWIFT and large settlement houses. The purpose of this contractor's job is to provide a way for the ECB to pinpoint which banks are insolvent and where the collapse will stem from. This is being done by creating large data lakes, which an engineer can analyze and find meaning at a graphical level. How much bail-ins each bank has to execute, and how much of a loss they can take. This is evidence that the ECB is definitely planning on bail-ins as a means of surviving an imminent collapse. And when this occurs, we can expect multiple banks to close and stock markets around the world to shut down, as the banks steal as much money from the people as they deem necessary. Most of this work is being done in private, but there are pieces of information available to the public on the EU's SRB website, including operational guidance on bail-in implementation and the operational guidance on bail-in playbooks.
See, now notice, I'm not putting anything up here that you can't check out yourself. Statistics, graphs, these are facts. And you can read their own words. You can listen to their own words when they're sitting around talking. I don't know exactly why they let this out to the public, but like they say in the meeting of those bankers sitting around that table, they're talking about the fact that they don't want everybody to know about this, because if they did, there would be a bank run, and that would prematurely collapse the banks before they have to do whatever they're going to do. They're going to take our money. That's what they're going to do. They're telling us right here, they're going to take our money. They've passed bills, they've passed rules and regulations and the procedure on how to go about it. They've done it. Bank of America and Chase has already taken people's money. Check it out.
The ECB contractor has also pointed out that the latest directives for the European Union's digital service providers states that governments shall appoint trusted bodies for internet domain registry, meaning that the government will have the sole authority on who is able to have a website, and that these new security directives allow a gaping hole for a major cyber attack, which official commentators are ignoring. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
So there's so much going on, and trust me, I know it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and so much of the news is negative. But let's take the scenario down to a situation that we can sort of wrap our heads around. Now, if you're standing on the railroad tracks and quiet, and you have earplugs in and a blindfold on, and I walk up to you and say, hey, and I take one of the earplugs out, say, hey, there is a train coming and you're on the train track and you can't see it because you have a blindfold on. That's all really negative information if you stop and think about it. But it's only negative if you don't take action. If it promotes for you to take action, to take your blindfold off and step off of the track. See, that's what I mean. It's hard to say this stuff to people without seeming like I'm talking to a 5-year-old. If you step off the track, then that information turns totally positive. If you get your money out of the bank, start protecting yourself, buy some gold and silver, buy some food, get prepared. All of these are positive actions that have been initiated by negative information. But so many people can't get past the negativity. Oh, I don't want to think about this. This is so horrible. I know, go away, go away. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's important to realize, because this just happened. I think today or yesterday, maybe. They finally got permission to shoot this thing down. But just listen a little bit about this.
The blimp that you see on screen is much bigger than a football field if you cut it out in little squares. Just the communications array and the solar panels on the bottom are the equivalent of 3 school buses lined up end to end.
Wake up, people.
And China has bragged. I have a whole stack of articles admitting it that they have these blimps, these balloons.
They're actually spying on us. and we're letting them do it. Where's our military? Are they so worried about white rage and gender identity that they're not looking up? And you ought to hear what the general said. The general at the Pentagon, he was asked, hey, should we be telling people about this, where it is and all that? He says, no, all they have to do is look up. He knows people won't look up. They're not looking up. There's a whole thing on just basically looking up. And here's another quick thing about people refusing to take the COVID vaccine and what that could lead to. This is off of Fox.
Little did the American public know at the time that the CDC was holding a meeting discussing the potential to track those who were unvaccinated. Well, the proposal was documented on page 194 of the CDC's September meeting packet, but until now, we'd never heard the plan on tape. Well, meet a little-known figure, CDC Dr. David Bergland.
There has been interest expressed in being able to track people who are not immunized or who are only partially immunized. And at the current time, there can be considered to be a significant modifiable risk factor for morbidity and for mortality. And it can be of interest for clinical reasons as well as being of value for public health reasons to be able to track this. NCHS is therefore proposing creation of codes related to...
This is what I mean. They're actually telling us what they're doing. They're actually telling us. Why don't we get it?
People being unvaccinated for COVID-19 and for being partially vaccinated for COVID-19.
So it's not just a tracking of the unvaccinated, which is ridiculous. If you thought getting 1 or even 2 shots was going to shield you from being surveilled or tracked, medical big brother looking over your shoulder, you were wrong. Because after the presentation, Dr. David Bergland opened the floor to questions and comments. He was asked if those who had previously had COVID and therefore are rejecting the vaccine, whether they could avoid the unvaccinated code they were assigned. Listen to his response.
At this point, it has been recommended that even if someone has a history of COVID-19, that it may be beneficial for them to get the vaccine. So at this point in time, I would not disallow use of these codes, even if someone had that history. We could use these codes together with the...
In other words, you need to keep taking boosters forever. They're talking 2 a year right now.
History of code. If someone wished to be unvaccinated, that would usually not be recommended still.
I don't, like I say, it's hard to talk to people about things like this without sounding like I'm talking to a 5-year-old.
Now, this was just a plan back in September of 2021, but boy, did they move fast.
Yeah, they do move fast, and they're moving faster, folks. Now, even people like Bill Maher is starting to wake up. Listen to what Bill Maher has to say here.
Rule, if you're part of today's woke revolution, you need to study the part of revolutions where they spin out of control because the revolutionaries get so drunk on their own purifying elixir, they imagine they can reinvent the very nature of human beings.
His moronic crowd, they clap at everything. He could say just the opposite and they would clap, but it's important what he's saying.
Communists thought selfishness could be cast out of human nature. Russian revolutionaries spoke of the new Soviet man who wasn't motivated by self-interest, but instead wanted to be part of a collective. No, it turns out he wanted to be on a yacht in a Gucci tracksuit holding a vodka and a prostitute. Not standing in line all day for a potato. The problem with communism and with some very recent ideologies here at home is that they think you can change reality by screaming at it, that you can bend human nature by holding your breath. But that's the difference between reality and your mommy. Lincoln once said that you can repeal all past history, but you still cannot repeal human nature. But he's canceled now, so f*** him. Yesterday, I asked ChatGPT, are there any similarities between today's woke revolution and Chairman Mao's cultural revolution?
For those of you that don't know what chat is, it's a artificial intelligence that what they've been doing, and we know this now, is they write a huge article, 10, 20-page article about something, an event, what's going on. Then they feed that into artificial intelligence and tell it to rewrite it, but change the flavor of it. So it sounds like 100 people wrote this article, and it's like big news because 100 journalists are writing this article. Oh my God, it must be true. But it was just one article, and AI coming up with little devious ways to put it in your brain.
1960s, and it wrote back, how long do you have? Because again, in China, we saw how a revolutionary thought he could do a page-one rewrite of Humans. Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds: old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being. A lot of pointing and shaming went on. Oh, and about 1 million dead. And the only way to survive was to plead insanity for the crime of being insufficiently radical, then apologize and thank the state for the chance to see what a piece of shit you are. And of course, submit to re-education, or as we call it here in America, freshman orientation. Listen to this story. There's a law professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, named Jason Kilborn, whose crime was that on one of his exams, he used a hypothetical case where a black female worker sued her employer for race and gender discrimination, alleging that managers had called her 2 slur words, the type of real-world case these students might one day confront. And knowing the extreme sensitivity of today's students, he didn't write the 2 taboo words on the test, just the first letter of each. He was teaching his students how to fight racism in the place where it matters most, the criminal justice system. But because he merely alluded to those words, again, in the service of a good cause, he was banned from campus, placed on indefinite leave, and made to wear the dunce cap. No, not really the dunce cap part, but our American version of that. 8 weeks of sensitivity training, weekly 90-minute sessions with a diversity trainer, and having to write 5 self-reflection papers. A grown-ass man, a liberal law professor. If you can't see the similarities between that and this, the person who needs re-education is you. Yes, we do have our own Red Guard here, but they do their rampaging on Twitter. Here's a cute example from a couple of years ago. The banjo player from Mumford & Sons tweeted that he liked a book that apparently had not been approved by the revolution. So, of course, he had to delete the tweet, then take time away from the band. Oh my God, you mean this could have affected Mumford & Sons? And then the cringing apology, I have come to better understand the pain caused by the book I endorse. Pain?
See, here's where, if he would have stood up, nobody knows who this guy is anymore, but if he would have stood up like the Dixie Chicks or whoever and said something, he would be way more popular than he is now. But when you bow down to these people, you get buried. You get buried, and no one will ever hear of you again. Oh my God. Okay, before we run out of time, I have to play this for you. I don't know if you know about this or not, but Project Veritas, they do some great undercover work. This is Jordan Tristan Walker. He's the Pfizer Director of Research and Development, Strategic Operations, and mRNA Scientific Planning. Now he doesn't know it, but he's having coffee, drinks. I don't know if having dinner. I think it's just drinks, and he thinks he's getting a chance to have a date with a new boyfriend, not realizing that the potential boyfriend is actually a journalist with Project Veritas. And look this up and see what I'm not going to have time to show it, but see what he does when he finds out that he's been filmed by an undercover journalist. He flips out. It's like a demonic spirit comes out that's had the light shined on him. I'm going to stop this and read what he's saying once in a while, because unfortunately, the picture sync is off sometimes with band.video because I think they're being hacked. But listen to what he says.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But is it? There's something happening, but we don't always figure it out.
Okay, there's something happening, but we don't always figure it out. This is what he's saying.
I mean, you're a urologist, so you must understand,
Well, I mean, you're a urologist, so you must understand what's going on with it, right?
What's going on with it, right? Well, that's why I just said that it's weird. How we don't find out that
Well, that's why I understand that it's weird.
this mRNA lingers in the body.
I hope we don't find out that somehow this mRNA lingers in the body and
it has to be affecting something hormonal.
Because it has to be affecting something hormonal to impact menstrual cycles.
And menstrual cycles? Yeah, or the entire next generation is super fucked up. Could you imagine the scandal?
Can you imagine? Yeah, or the entire next generation super fucked up. Could you imagine the scandal? Oh my God.
Oh my God. I mean, I take Pfizer off my resume.
I would take Pfizer off my resume. And it just goes on and on and on. Look this guy up. I think YouTube still allows it. You can get it on Rumble. Go to Project Veritas. They show it pretty clear, the entirety of it, because he starts throwing things and he starts screaming at the journalist. Don't you understand? I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I was trying to impress him by telling him lies. Well, even if that's the truth, that's sort of, what's the word? Moronic? I didn't used to be a patriot kind of a person, but when I started growing up and realizing that millions of people have fought and died for this country, that has to make anybody have a certain amount of respect for what's happening. And then when you start looking back at the Founding Fathers, I've been listening to an Audible book called The Secret History of the United States. And in this book, they're talking about, and it's the same thing with The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth. When you start looking at what's going on in the world for millennia, through the eyes and through the perceptions of secret societies and secret groups of people throughout the ages, you realize that this country, it has a special place in history, very special. And I'm starting to wonder if it isn't a divine interaction, an experimentation on this planet with what people can do if they're given freedom. Because you can give somebody freedom, but it's keeping it that seems to be the problem, because freedom isn't free. You have to stand up for it. You have to stand up for something. Otherwise, you fall for anything. All of these little sayings that we've heard over the years. I wrote a book called To Believe or Not to Believe, The Social and Neurological Consequences of Belief Systems. And I based the whole book when I read this quote by Voltaire. If they can make you believe in absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities. I was thinking, if he knew that a few centuries ago, And they've known this for a long. Constantine knew this, obviously. That's the reason he incorporated Christianity into the Roman government, so he could get God-given creator being believers out on the battlefield. They're the only ones that would go out on the battlefield and die. So he had to mix that with the nation state. But I started looking into this and interviewing neuroscientists that are doing functional MRIs. And they said, yeah, it's true. We can prove it's true because if you overlay a functional MRI of a strong believer, it doesn't matter. They could be a political believer, a religious believer, ideology, doesn't matter. A firm believer that believes in something with very little or no evidence, especially, that's important. And remember, in the Christian religion, that's where you get the greatest reward in heaven if you believe this with no evidence whatsoever. That's where I have to be at least a Gnostic in this. But if you get that functional MRI map of the neurological networking, you can overlay it perfectly on a person that commits atrocities, a psychopath, a sociopath, that does things atrocious to most people. So they knew, somehow they knew, that if you could get somebody to believe in absurd things with no evidence, it does something to the brain, and then you can get that person to go out and die on the battlefield for crazy things, or join Antifa, or join Black Lives Matter, or any number of political organizations. And all of the people that influence our governors and politicians, and they believe in absurd things. I mean, check out what's going on. So if they're all believing in absurd things, what comes next? The atrocities. Ask anybody that looked at Hitler. It was absurd at first. And then it got into craziness and atrocities. And everybody seemed to think, oh, it's okay. Dang it, I'm getting close to the end of the hour here. So thanks for tuning in. And like I say, if you want to leave a small donation, large donate, it doesn't matter. Anything helps. That's lotusguide.com/donation. And you can follow me on Rumble at rumble.com/user/Rahasia Uncensored. bbsradio.com/spiritual activist. And my YouTube channel, which is starting to be okay, is youtube.com/Lotus Guide. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care and stay safe, and buy some silver and gold.